Is it on now?
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you coming. I'm Dave. I'm Betty's husband. The format here is informal, and anybody that wishes to come up and speak, it's fine. So I'll just start it with what my thoughts are. Coincidentally, on this date, August 5th, the family reunion is planned at a rental home in Park City. Sean and his family were coming from California, and Stacy and her son Hayden would be there too. Instead, we were having a memorial for their mom, grandmother, mother-in-law. Betty passed away on Thursday, July 25th. The previous Monday, we were wandering around having lunch at Sundance with my son Jason and grandson Beckett, who happened to be visiting from California. Betty was fine that day. But the following day, everything changed. After seeing our doctor, she was treated in the intensive care unit in Spanish Fork and Provo for 3 days. Betty had lost one kidney to radiation for cancer years ago. That is why we went to fluid infusions at the cancer center twice a week for many years. This time, a kidney stone blocked. The remaining kidney, and infection developed. It was determined that nothing more could be done, and we knew that we had to let her go. Betty and I met over 30 years ago. She was divorced, and I was widowed when I lived in California. Betty had been doing my mom's hair over 30 years. My mom worked at the BYU as a manager of food service at the Missionary Training Center and was very fussy about her hair. Mom was very satisfied with Betty's work, and many of her friends started going to Betty's shop, which was in her home in Orem. Mom and Betty became friends, and they did things together like going to lunch, hiking at Sundance and Bridalveil Falls. Betty also did my first wife's hair and 2 of my son's hair when we all came on vacation from California. But I never met her. After my retirement, I was visiting from California, and the evening before returning, my mom handed me a note with Betty's phone number. So I called her, and we went to dinner. Next day, I went back to California. A couple of months later, she called and asked when I was coming back to Utah. Betty was working at Novell at that time, and there was some event there and asked me to go with her. So I did. Later, I bought a home in Edgemont area of Provo, but still lived in California. About a year later, I moved to Utah on a more permanent basis. Betty and I hung out together for about 5 years and became close friends before marrying in 1999. Later on, we had a marriage solemnized in the Provo City Temple. Graciously, Betty and Lena Ann Rollins acted as proxy to do my first wife's temple work. My first wife was Catholic, yet she taught Sunday school in the Mormon church for several years. And we also attended Mass throughout our marriage. We had a great marriage. She passed away at age 48. Now, it's been almost 25 years since Betty and I married. Another coincidence is that I knew Betty's husband, Vic, long before she did. Vic and I went through elementary and junior high together. Then Vic went to Provo High and I went to Orem High. Vic and Betty raised 3 children, Stacy, Kevin, and Sean. And I must say they were remarkable parents. They lost their son Kevin last year because of cancer. We planned a celebration of life for Kevin, and that is when Betty decided that she did not want a traditional funeral. So here we are. Betty has been through a lot of medical issues. She was once in the hospital for 2.5 months, but yet maintained a joyful attitude. I will miss her greatly and pray that she is having a wonderful reunion with her son Kevin and her mom, who left this life at Betty's birth. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you.
You okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
You need to come back.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming today. She loved and cared so much for all of you. I'm going to tell you about a couple of stories about my mom and I. One about hair and the other about sewing. When I was younger, my mom always had my hair all fixed up so cute until one day. I was in junior high and I did my own hair. But one day I asked her if she could put some cute curls in my hair. So we decided to put perm rods without the hair solution in my hair overnight. The next morning, we took the perm rods out. It looked so bad to me. I don't know where I left off here. It looked so bad to me. She told me that she was going to take me straight to school and drop me off at the front doors. So when I got to school, I went straight to the bathroom, stuck my head under the sink. And when I got home, she asked me why you did that. It was so cute. I was also in junior high in the next story. My mom was helping me with a project from school, sewing something. I was at the sewing machine and she had her finger by the needle. I accidentally hit the pedal and the needle went through her finger. After that day, I told her I would never sew again. She would always tell me she was going to buy me a sewing machine for Christmas, but she never did. She knew I was only going to use the needle and thread. When my mom would sew anything, she did such beautiful work. My mom was so beautiful, loving, and caring, and so much more. She taught her children to be loving and caring just like her. She was so strong. She went through more than anyone I know. Lost her mom 10 days after she was born. 2 cancers that went on for 21 years. A son that passed away. A son and his family that lost their home in a fire. And me that got a divorce. When I moved back to the area, we became so close. She was my rock. She was always there for me. My mom and Dave would have me over every Sunday for dinner after I got off work. On my days off, my mom and I would get together at least one of those days, if not both. We would go all over the place, shopping for all kinds of things. Dave would tell us he'll leave the lights on. I am so happy I got to have so many good times with her. Mom, I want to tell you I love you so much. Thank you for being my mom. Honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. I have to remember to be strong like you always were. And that you are so happy. And I will see you again.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean. I am Betty's youngest. I'm reading for their neighbor, Kathy. So imagine me as Kathy today, right here at this moment. I hope not, but if there's somewhat of a resemblance, you can keep that in your own head. So this is Kathy Sanders, Betty's neighbor and friend. I'm so sorry and sad that I can't be here in person. I'm on a long planned trip out of country, but my heart and thoughts are with you all at this difficult time. Betty was my hero, as I'm sure she was also yours. This is very difficult for me to write, while I have only known Betty for not even quite 5 years. Our friendship felt like she had been my friend from pre-existence. It was so easy to love and enjoy Betty. I think we all felt her love and concern for us individually with each interaction we had with her. I had just moved in next door when I went out into my back porch, and there was my smiling new neighbor saying hi and introducing herself. The back porch became a favorite place to quickly catch up on each other's life. I'd worried that I didn't catch Betty or David in the backyard or the garage every few days. But Betty even put a flat stone in the bushes between our garages so we could easily get back and forth. Betty was very thoughtful and a giving person. I was the grateful recipient of many cookies, fruit, and beautiful hand-stitched pillow, a framed comforting poem about those who have passed, and many dinners. She had made the best potato salad. My dog Buddy loved Betty, which is interesting because she didn't like dogs, I don't think, and was sometimes too enthusiastic about showing it. She was there for me when my husband Bob passed. I have a candle she gave me to remind me of him. She was always thinking of others despite her many health challenges. I think a loving Heavenly Father kept Betty upon this earth as long as he did, despite her serious health challenges, as she was yet to touch so many lives with her example, testimony, strength, and love. I know she's touched my life when I most needed it. Her friendship made my transition to Utah so much easier and pleasant. I felt at home, and a large part that was Betty and David's love and friendship. I often say that I couldn't ask for any better neighbors or friends. Betty understood and knew that all too well. Bob's journey through cancer. Then she listened to me for countless hours after Bob's passing. Betty even placed flowers on his grave on Memorial Day. That was important for her, I think. I will greatly miss my sister from another mother, as I am sure we all will. I will treasure the intimate moments we had together, the laughs, the food, the activities we did together, the visits, and the hellos across the driveway or the fence. I can truly say that I loved Betty and felt her love for me. I know that she has been greeted by those who love her, especially her son. I can testify that she is free from her earthly pain and in a beautiful place with our Savior and all her family. I pray that I can be an example of strength and love as Betty was and is. I love you, Betty. It's good. I think probably the best story I have about her is probably another hair story. Imagine a white guy with an afro, and I'll leave it there.
Hello, everybody. I am David's middle son, Jason, and honored to speak on behalf of my brothers and our kids. When my father and Betty married 25 years ago, my brothers and I gained an amazing stepmother, but also a wonderful, supportive friend who loved us unconditionally. Betty became an integral part of our lives, sharing in both laughter and our tears. As we grew older and started our own families, our 4 boys were truly fortunate to have such an extraordinary grandmother. Betty was always up for an adventure. Whether it was late night runs to Hawaiian shaved ice, car rides reminiscing about her and Dad's childhood in Spanish Fork and Provo, or watching Spanish Fork Parade and rodeo and setting off fireworks on the 24th of July, which one year may or may not have ended with Betty racing across the street with a hose to save the neighborhood from fire. We all survived that mishap, except for Sam's flip-flops. Apparently, flip-flops are flammable. We showed countless hikes together, exploring Provo Canyon, Brattleville Falls, Sundance, Snow Canyon, Zion, and the Red Rocks of St. George. Betty's enthusiasm for these moments was infectious. Evening chats on the patio with Betty were filled with laughter and discussions on any topic that would come up. Her fresh haircuts for the boys, simple home-cooked dinners and barbecues, complete with her homemade ranch dressing, her famous potato salad, and homemade jam were always special, lagging out the long days of summer. Betty was also a gifted quilter. Her hand-stitched quilts, each a labor of love, were a beautiful testament to her skill and dedication. We all use the quilts she made us over the years, every day. Betty had a remarkable ability to show up for family, for friends, and even strangers. She faced her battle with cancer and its side effects with a never back down mentality, a positive attitude that never wavered, and a smile on her face, even when you knew the pain was unbearable. Just a couple weeks ago, I told her how much I'd admired her strength. Just a couple weeks ago, I told her how much I admired her strength and how she inspired us all. I never imagined that'd be her last card. Our last conversation. I'm forever grateful for our time spent together. My dad and Betty's love for each other Through both sickness and health, it was a beautiful partnership that's endured for many years. That love and devotion has taught us understanding and empathy in our own relationships to this day. The memories we created with Betty will forever live in our hearts, and her spirit will always remind us that we can do hard things, we can inspire each other to live a good life and take care of one another. Thank you for being here. Carl, you're up.
So I'm Carl Hull. I am Bill and Helen Hull's son. They would have been here. Bill Hull is David's brother, his only brother and his favorite brother too. And they are on a mission right now out in Omaha, Nebraska. And they asked me to share a few words. And the good news for all of you, this is going to be a lot shorter because it's me and not him. If it were him, this thing would be, we'd be having dinner tonight together. So my mom and dad said that they wanted to just express appreciation to Betty for a number of things: aprons, towels, pillowcases, table runners. And there's one towel in particular that they are super grateful for. They served a mission back in 2005 in the Sacred Grove, and Betty hand-stitched a towel with some embroidery on the outside that represented all of the trees and the leaves and things around the Sacred Grove. And that is my mom and dad's cherished possession. I didn't know that that was such an important thing to them until they told me about that. So they also mentioned that she was the type of person who was thoughtful and kind and left everything and everyone better when she was with them. And there's a few people that are like that that I've experienced in my life. When you go and you hang out with them, even if you haven't seen them for a while, you're like, man, I just feel better by being around him. And that's the way Betty was. And I wish that there were more people like that on this earth. But the thing is, I'm seeing a few today here too. And that's what's neat. When you get family together, family hasn't seen each other for a while. It's like, wow, I feel uplifted and refreshed. And like, I'm proud to be a family member in the Hulls. And I'm glad that Betty was part of our family. And I say that in Jesus' name, amen.
I hope you'll bear with me. I'd like to share with you why Betty was so special. I've known Betty, and some of you have too, for over 72 years. Yeah, that's the whole thing. No, I met her. She'd come to school in 3rd grade. We've been friends since then. I can't remember what fun or trouble we got into when we were younger. But I want to share with you the memories I have of a pretty young woman, a wife, mother, grandmother, and friend, a teacher, our inspiration, and our hero. That's what she's been to us. I remember when her and Vic were married. I don't know if it would be above this room, but they lived above the mortuary. And I would go up the stairs and go in, and she was there, and she was going to help me to sew. She taught me all the neat little tricks about facings and all of these things. She was a beautiful, beautiful seamstress. But she was willing to share with her talents. Then she did a dirty trick. She moved to California. I was so lost. Soon after she moved, Lee and I moved to Denver for a year. After calling our parents, the first person I called was Betty. I'm on my way, friend. I got a friend in California and I'm going to be by her. And we were for a while. We made some wonderful memories in those few years. Lee would leave for work in the morning. I'd get Kimberly ready, go in the car, head for Betty Land's. From there, we headed to Newport Beach or Huntington Beach. It was the thing. We'd stay there till noon, 1 o'clock. Then we'd head back to their home. And I'd go into the beauty salon. She'd gone to school and was a beautician. Now think back, 1970s, in the 70s. Betty Lynn did my hair. It didn't move for a week. It didn't. It was so plastered. A tornado couldn't have started. Well, you remember, don't you, some of you? It was a bouffant. Only I got a Betty bouffant. Betty was a good cook, a marvelous cook, and she'd share that too. Now, I don't know about the potato salad. I'm sure I had that. But my family will attest to silicon supper, baked beans, cherry cheesecake, and zucchini bread, which I've made 4 already this month. She'd give me a cookbook hoping that maybe some of it would rub off, and I'd do that, but it didn't. It hasn't. I am not a cook. But I do like to sew, and she's taught me so many tricks. She knew I liked sewing and embroidery and crocheting, handy things. When company would come from Utah, the only thing we requested was they bring us a box of red licorice and a box of brown licorice. We couldn't get Twitzers in California at that time. They didn't stock them. So that was our treat. I can't tell you how many times sat at the kitchen table, sipping Coke and eating licorice. That was our treat. But then again, she did another dirty trick. She moved back to Utah. When Lee and I finally moved back in 2001, I was at my friend's doorstep so fast it wasn't funny. But it was about that time also that Betty started having health issues, major health issues. What a trooper she's been. What an example. What an inspiration. What a hero. Never complaining. I'd call and ask her how she's doing. I'm okay. I'm doing good. Yeah. Why were you in the hospital? I don't think that means good. She always had time for you. Whenever you were there with her, you were that important. She has all these people love her. But when you were with her, you were important. It wasn't everybody. You were the important. She always had time for you. When I moved back, I found a pattern that I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cute. I would to be a table runner. So I showed it to Betty. I says, what do you think? Do you think I can do this? Oh, yeah, we can do it. Because it was a table runner of flip-flops. I have a table runner now on my dining room. I put it out in August with some beach ball and a sand pail. But She taught me how to do a table runner with flip-flops. 2 years ago, she got me hooked on applique. If I couldn't figure it out, okay, she was there to help me. I says, what do I do with this piece of white wool? I don't think it's going to look like a hill on a pillow, and I need the houses. Oh, we'll figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I'll just call Lynanne. She knows everything. And she did. She helped us. I'm going to memorize your phone number, Lynanne. Dave, you and Betty have made a great pair. You've shared some wonderful times together. You've been there for each other, support through good times and bad. You've been the Energizer Bunny for both of you. I'll miss her, but I know she's out of pain, and I know she's happy, and I know she's with Kevin. And more importantly, I know she's with a mother who has watched her grow from afar and loved her and watched as she became the beautiful wife, mother, grandmother, and friend to many, with an example of always being our hero. Once again, my friend has moved on. But as always, our friendship will endure the miles and the hemispheres. One day, we'll share our laughs and our licorice.
I hope I can hold the tears back. Many of you know me, and some of you do not. I'm Vic Field. I was Betty's first husband. That was able to have 3 marvelous children together: Stacy, Kevin, and Sean. We had our challenges, like a lot of married couples do. But one thing about Betty, getting back to what Linda was saying, if you was her friend, you was her friend for life. She made sure that she loved you and cared for you. She loved her family, her sisters and her brothers. She loved our children more than anyone I would know. And even with our differences that we had, they still cared for her. That she would succeed in life, and she met a wonderful man, David, which really has taken care of her with her illness and her sicknesses. Thank you, Dave. But life always throws us curves. And if we're willing to pick up the bat and swing, every now and again, we're going to hit that ball. And we're going to knock it out of the park. in happiness and love grows piece by piece, inch by inch. And to me, at this point, I think she is very joyous in spending time with her birth mother and spending time with Kevin and trying to teach us that are here how important family is. Listen, because the Spirit is coming. She'll whisper in your ear. I'll guarantee it. With her love and care. We had a lot of memories, and like Linda says, when we were young, we moved to Southern California to start our lives. But as time goes on, we found out it was probably better to move back to Utah, which I think was a smart move. And in Orem, we had many really good friends, and Betty was the instigator of all of that. And so but some of it began, and I'm kind of rambling here, but some began, and I'll tell you kind of a funny story. Maybe you don't think it's funny, but I thought it was kind of funny. But the night of our reception, it was bustling around here in the mortuary, getting everything all set up, and friend Lee says, "Come on, Vic, let's go someplace for a little while." Well, we come running back in just about the time other people were going through the line. And she made a comment to me. She says, "This could have been our shortest marriage ever." I'll leave that note with you, and that, like I say, even though we had our differences and we ended up in a divorce, she's a very graceful, loving mother to the children, and she cared about you all. Thank you.
I'm the oldest person in this room who knew Betty Lane. Betty Lane was born, Betty Lane was born July 3rd, 1943. She was a little dark-haired, beautiful baby. That was just amazing. And she was born in a home which was in Springville. I don't even remember the name of it, but it was her mother to come and have her birthday. And she stayed 7 days before she was released to go home. And as a family, we visited Betty. She was so pretty, had done her nails for the occasion. It was not until at home, when we got home, that we received word that Betty had passed away due to a blood clot when she moved to go home. That day, Betty's life changed. She went to live with Grandma Hoffman because Lynn was in the service in England. And in those days, they didn't allow anyone to go home. It was during the war. And so as a result, my sister, which had nursed her 3-month-old baby, she started to nurse Betty Lynn. So far, she nursed her every day until she was weaned. 2 babies. So that's quite a feat, wouldn't it be for a woman to do? Lynn was still in England through the World War II. And as a result, everyone thought they were twins. And when they would ask about her, she would say, no, this one's 3 months older than the other one. So it was really quite something. In fact, she said, my sister sent us the dollars. Years go by, marriages, babies, divorces, moved to California, death, and my dad and Lynn and my brother Robert. Actually, I remember when they got this country. My father used every breath he had. Lynn, Robert used the sail. And it was a real challenge for them. And as we walked in today, I said, my goodness. In fact, my husband said, how did it change over the years? All these years, amazing. But Vivian and I have kept each other in touch all these years, but I probably heard from her every other day. The last She has suffered bad health for many, many years. We love that we did. We think all of it. That's my career. She doesn't feel no good. And I'm sorry for putting you on the good. No matter what. But she did fight again. Maybe everybody's happy when you talk to you. And then she done so many good things for so many people. And she said just recently that they have saved her life. So we have to talk to her. We taking such good care of her. It was really, really good. It's good, really good. Definitely good. We get our water from that family. We check with her. But that's good. I certainly like to learn. Grateful. And I like that.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Theon Laney. I'm Betty Lynn's other brother, and I'll explain that. My mother and Betty Lynn's father, Lynn, were brother and sister. And as Aunt Jerry mentioned, that my father and Betty Lynn's father were off in the war when Betty Lynn was born. My sister had been born about 3 months before Betty Lynn was. And so my mother is the one who took care of Betty Lynn for several years until the men came back from the war. So she's been a part of my family forever, if you will. And I know that my mother considered her just as much of a daughter as her own daughters were. Recently, another story, my father in the 60s bought an old Model A Ford out of a farmer's barn in Montana, and we fixed it up. And he used to drive it to work. Recently, of course, that became my car, and in the last few years, I've refinished the car and fixed it up and made it drivable and things like that. And just before the Springville Parade, which is the first week in June, I decided to go down and see Betty Lynn, my cousin, and I took my Model A Ford with me, and I took her for a ride, and she apparently really enjoyed it. And I was going to be in the Springville Parade with my car, and so I invited her, which was about the next week or so. I invited her to come and ride in the parade with me, and boy, she jumped all over that and said, "You bet, I'm going in your car in the parade." Well, after a few days, she reconsidered her health conditions and circumstances and decided not to go in the car. But she was really excited to go ride in the old Model A Ford. And I think she really enjoyed the ride that we had around the block or two the week before.
I also am a friend of Betty's, and I don't know how you determine how deep a friendship is when you have a friend like Betty. I got to know Dave and Betty about 14 years ago, I think. My husband was one of David's visiting teachers, and he had never my husband had never taught before. And so David became a special treat for us also. And when I first met Betty, she was in the Relief Society, and I had not been called to be a Relief Society visiting teacher. And I mentioned it to her, and she says, well, you're called now. She called me to be a visiting teacher, and we went as a threesome. So I was the third one, but anyway, I would have loved to have gone no matter what I was. The other thing I'd like to share with you, I did have my hair cut by Betty once when she straightened it up from another hairdresser. And I did get a lot of her cherished pillows and everything else. But the thing I loved most of all was when she was losing weight. I think the time before this, when she went to the hospital for those long weeks, she came to me and she said, Karen, I'm getting too thin for my temple dress. Would you like to have it? And oh my gosh, I have her temple dress. And I'm not getting too skinny for it ever. It's beautiful like Betty. And I loved Betty. I love the example you are, Dave, and that Betty was. And I'm so grateful for our friendship.
My name is Annette Jones, and yes, I have a hair story. And yes, the potato salad was fabulous, and I don't have the recipe, and yeah, my loss, that's for sure. But so I met Betty when she did my hair when I was 15 years old. That's so funny. And she did my mother's hair when we lived in Orem. And then time goes on, and I moved to Salem, and she was like the first person that showed up at my door. She was in the Relief Society. She had the ward list, everybody's picture. Yeah, she was so efficient, so organized, so friendly. She's just darling. What a darling friend. She, some of the fun things, she was just always fun. So, um, she came over. She helped me hang pictures in my house. She actually she helped me weed my yard. It was such a nightmare. And she brought her, I think it was her granddad's truck, that white and red truck. Anyway, it was an old truck, and we just loaded the weeds in there. And she helped me. She was such a go-getter. I mean, yeah. So anyway, I remember she was over at my house one time, and she was eating a donut, and she was in my kitchen, and I heard this scream. My cat was stalking her, not because he wanted that donut. He was a little chonker, and he wanted that donut, and she was in the kitchen just carrying on. I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, the cat was not going to hurt her, but it was just funny. Yeah, it was a fun memory. So, yeah, she's an amazing lady, and I know I'll see her again. And she's just graduated. That's what's happened. She's just graduated, and we'll see her soon. And I'm thankful to Dave and Betty for their friendship over the years. Lots of meals, lots of potato salad. So, what a fun friend. Thank you. I'm sorry for everyone's loss. Yeah, we'll all miss her. So, but we've got good memories of her, so that's important. I say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Hi, I'm Norma, David's sister, and I'm Betty's sister. That was out of choice, and I loved her like a sister. I can't believe that there's so many people that said the very things that I think. She was somebody to everybody. I said, if I ever had a real down day, I'd say, I've got to call Betty. I got to call and talk. We put it on speakerphone and David joined in all the time, but it was such a blessing to talk to her because you always came away feeling better and lifted. And another thing, she taught me all these little tricks with sewing. We did that for years. One day I was staying at their house a few days, and she says, Norma, you're going to learn how to make yo-yos. She gave me this little round thing, and she taught me how to make a yo-yo. And she says, now here's a bag. You can fit 100 in there. And I said, yeah, right. I'm going to do that. I have a quilt that has 660 yo-yos on it. And it's really special. Made lots of quilts, but that's one of my favorites. And I would never even have begun to attempt it if it hadn't been for her. That was just one of the things. But let me tell you, I understand the things that you've said. I've heard some of your stories, and I appreciate all of you. And I love Betty. I loved your mom too. Thank you.
Some of you old folks remember Paul Harvey. Here's the rest of the story. When I hear these stories, I want to say, here's the rest of the story. And Betty did a lot of hair. And Karen's story about her hair. We were at her place one time, and her husband, Larry, was my home teaching partner. He wasn't very active in the church. And I told him, you don't have to do anything, just show up. And he did. So one time we were there and he needed a haircut. Well, Betty's the hairdresser. But I asked him if he had a vacuum cleaner. Because I have a Flowbee. Anybody know what a Flowbee is? Way back, I lived in California, they used to have a lot of infomercials. And so I bought a Floby. So my son came up from downstairs and the infomercial was on. And I was watching it again, even though I had one sitting right there by the couch. He said, who would be stupid enough to buy this? And I had one right here. Anyway, the Floby, Larry, Karen's husband Larry, needed a haircut. Well, Betty's the hairdresser. So I said, do you have a vacuum cleaner? You have to hook a Floby onto the vacuum. Said, I'll go just wait here a few minutes. I'll run home and grab my Floby. I'll come back. And I gave him a haircut. And he loved it. It was good. It worked out really good. But when we lived in California, the kids were teenagers. I did a lot of hair there. And I told Betty, all you need is a Floby. Anyway, the rest of the story. Vic, I'm sorry you got divorced, but I'm dang glad you did. Worked out for me and for Sandy. Anyway, I didn't have any part of that. I came into the picture later on. So anyway, we're having a luncheon after this at the church, right across the road from where I live. So if anybody wants some, hopefully some green jello will be there. Just come and enjoy that after we run up to the cemetery. So everybody's welcome there. I told the Relief Society president, first I said I didn't want any of that stuff. But after talking to the boys and thinking how many people are going to be there, I thought, I better call her back. So I did. I called her back and she's preparing a luncheon at the church. So everybody that wants to come can join us. Anybody else, any takers here that want to say something? We have one. My neighbor. Let me tell you while she's walking up here how we met. Oh, you're gonna, I don't want to blow her thunder.
Well, when we met, Dave had parked 5 feet out from the curb and was looking, they were both looking down into their basement, right? While it was being built. Pardon me? Yeah, the house was not even built yet, but we were in our house right next door. So I see them as I come up, and I'm driving a big motorhome. I don't know how long it was, but way too long. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get around Dave's car and then scoot into the curb so that I'll be up close to the curb with my motorhome. And I did a marvelous job. Unfortunately, Betty didn't like it because I got out of the motorhome and I thought Betty was going to cry. And I came up to her and I said, I'd like to meet you. I'm your new neighbor. Kind of a good way to meet, right? And she was just, the whole front of her car. Oh, it was awful, wasn't it? The whole front of her car was taken off by the back of my motorhome. That's kind of a neat way to meet a new neighbor, isn't it? But Betty and I, she forgave me somehow. I don't know how, but she forgave me. And we had a good friendship. Not as good as Kathy because we're only there 6 months of the year, but Kathy had a wonderful relationship with Betty, and Betty was she was a feisty lady. She was not going to let go, and she was never going to stop. She was going to succeed in spite of tremendous odds. And we're also shocked that she passed, but on the other hand, she was living on the edge, right? She was living on the edge for a long time. And I really admired her. She was so amazing. She could quilts and anything like that she could do and do absolutely beautifully. I'm jealous because my quilts look sloppy, but hey. But she was a marvelous woman. She would, when I had just heard that she was feeling really bad again, and the next thing you know, she'd be at my front door as if she was just fine. That's just the way she was. She's going to come and see me. She's going to take care of her neighbors, and she was wonderful. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I was going to do the Paul Harvey thing again, but the reason I was 5 feet away from the curb, this is the rest of the story. It's a construction zone. There's a pile of debris there. I don't park normally like that. I've got a few tickets before, but not too many. Anyway, Betty and I spent quite a bit of time some time in Hawaii, not a lot, but we were there one spell for a few weeks. We went there with my sister. They went there 30, 40 times probably, in a beach house on North Shore in Oahu. It was right on the beach. And we went with them a couple of times. And there you get to know a lot of the neighbors. And we went to church every week. And I think on the third, of course, you talk to the bishopric when you're a visitor. So we went there for about 3 weeks in a row. And the bishopric said, if you come one more time, we're going to give you a calling. So we left. So Betty and I went to one week. We were there. We went over to the Big Island. That was before Kevin moved there. And our friends were at the Polynesian Cultural Center. They were on a mission there. And he had a timeshare there. And so he said, don't do anything until I'll get back to you. A couple of days later, he'd made arrangements to stay in his timeshare. But we had to be Bill and Lynn. That was their names. They weren't supposed to give the timeshare out to anybody else. So we had to be there for a week as Bill and Lynn. So it worked out really well. Betty Lynn, that's her name. She could remember that. My brother's Bill, so I could remember that. And the guy giving us the timeshare was named Bill. So it was fairly easy to remember that stuff, to be Bill and Lynn. So everybody there to be associated with, we were Bill and Lynn. And we went to luau's and stuff like that with them, and they talked to us about Bill and Lynn. Okay. So anyway, aloha means love, respect, and compassion. It means living in harmony with other people, with grace, kindness, and affection. So we got to know that word aloha really well. So when I said aloha, you were supposed to say aloha back. But it's when we went to church, their churches like ours, Sacrament Museum and so forth. But they dress. We didn't. They don't wear sport coats and suits and stuff like that to church. They dress Hawaiian style in Hawaii. So when the bishop gets up to speak, he says aloha, and everybody says aloha back. So aloha. Okay, we got it. So anybody wants to come to the luncheon, you're welcome. It's up right across the street from where I live. And from here, anybody else was welcome to speak. If not, we'll aloha.